What is up, guys? I apologize for the poor quality on this video, but this is just a quick precursor to the video that you're about to see, which is the test fitting of all the parts. I wanted to just go over really super fast about why I put the comment below on the unboxing video about why I no longer recommend Fretwire guitar kits. And I'm going to go over really quick what happened. So when I was doing the test fitting, I didn't really notice, and you'll see in the video, I'm completely unaware of it. The headstock on the guitar, if you look at the picture, the thumbnail of the video, or if you go to their website, and I don't know if they've updated this, but if you go to the website, for the Warlock kit, it has a very large paddle headstock. And what that's for is to be able to cut that original design with the horns of the Warlock guitar. The one that I received was more like like a Les Paul style or something. There was really no way to get even close to getting the horns or getting anything that looked really appropriate to the guitar as far as I'm concerned. I will be doing a video probably along the way when you see, like, I'm going to do a lot of the prep work for the paint, the electronics, things like that. You'll see the headstock that I actually ended up cutting out, and I think it looks okay. It's definitely not what I wanted, but I had to work with what I had, which was just a very small cut down version. I don't know what happened. I contacted Fretwire. Granted, they were very quick at responding, but then kind of disappeared for like 2 weeks. And then they said, yeah, that was wrong, but they're all like that now. And they offered me $10, which I said was kind of an insult, because what am I supposed to do with $10? That doesn't really buy me a paddle head or even a piece of wood to glue on and try to cut the horns out of it. So, and that was kind of part of the reason I wanted to do the Warlock, and part of the reason I bought their kit was to get that large paddle head to be able to cut the horns out. So I was extremely disappointed. And then they kind of disappeared on me again. And I also mentioned a couple other things that I'll probably talk more about when I do the build video. But one of them was one of the pots came apart. A lot of the holes are not lined up. There were a couple other things. Mostly that it went through the side of the box, which I talked about in the unboxing. That pot so easily broke, and they're very poor quality. So I already have parts to replace that. The other thing was the jack, for the cable jack. It was curved like for a Les Paul or a Telecaster, Stratocaster, whatever, and not flat. And on the Warlock, that's a flat surface, so, and it's pretty rigid metal, so it would have been a little bit tricky to bend that. But I will be showing you something that I went ahead and got, and I think it's really cool because I like either flush mount or countersunk jacks anyway, and so it was kind of one of those things I was planning on doing anyway. But somebody that doesn't want to have to go out and buy a bunch of parts for a kit that they just bought, they want to put it all together. To me, that was something that should have been addressed. So they came back after a few days. They offered me $50. I thought that was pretty fair. I had already saved $10 on the kit. They gave me $50 off, so by the time I got done, I saved like $60 total, and it made the kit very affordable. So I went ahead and accepted, and then I hadn't touched the kit, in case I had to send it back or something, so I haven't touched it, and I'm just now going to get started on building it. So I have the test fitting video ready to go, which is what you're about to watch, but I haven't done the build video yet. So as soon as I get that done, I'll put that up, so make sure you subscribe. Like the video and subscribe so that you'll see when the next one comes out. I will be following through on this. I do have a few other projects that are going on right now. I've got a Corvette that I'm putting an LS in, and I've got, just life, other things that have to be taken care of. So I don't know exactly when I'm going to finish it, but the weather's starting to get nicer here, so I want to try to get that painting done. And I'm still trying to decide between like a lime green and maybe like a metallic copper. So if you guys want to weigh in on that, I even thought about doing like light silver, metallic. I don't know. I'm kind of I don't want to just do black. But anyway, trying to make this video brief and it's already not. So, yeah, stay tuned. Enjoy this next part of the video. I put it together with the original headstock so you can see the original headstock. At the end of this little clip of the video, I'm going to put the two headstocks side by side, what they showed me I was supposed to get, what I actually got, so you can kind of see the difference and compare and know what I'm talking about. But it's pretty obvious. So anyway, enjoy.
Come on!
What is up, guys, and welcome to part 2 of this Warlock style build from Thefretwire.com. So I've done a couple of things off camera just to make this a little bit less repetitive. I put 5 of the tuning knobs on, I put 2 of the string retainers, which we'll talk about in a second, and I put the thread inserts for the Floyd Rose in already, just so that you don't have to sit here and watch me do those things, which are really annoying. I will show you how to put one tuner in case somebody out there doesn't know how to put a tuner in. If you look at the back of the headstock, there's this little hole for the anti-rotation screw that keeps it from doing this number. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna, on these, the holes don't perfectly line up on the screws, so we're actually going to start with that and not do any of the other things. If the screw lines up perfectly, then you don't have to do it this way, but this one doesn't. So this way I have a little bit more movement. I can actually take up some of the slack in the hole, and I'm just going to thread that screw down. And I'm using a smaller screwdriver so I don't scratch the side of the tuning knob. Then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to have one washer that goes on like that. Then there's a nut that goes down like that. We're going to thread it on. Try to line up the ferrule. On these it's just a washer, but it's usually a ferrule. So I'm going to tighten that down. Just snug. Remember, we're just test fitting everything right now, so we don't need to go super tight. And even when you do, if you have like a thick lacquer on here, you don't want to put them down too tight or it can crack that finish. Then as far as the string retainers, this is the special nut that comes with the Floyd Rose. These are where the strings go instead of the nut. They have this little string retainer piece that goes on. Screw goes in it. They were a little bit hard to get started the first time. I just ran them in and out a couple of times and that did it. So I'm just going to snug that down so it doesn't fall out. Truss rod cover, super straightforward, 3 little screws. I had to shave just a hair off of this one side because it was a little bit too tight and the screws didn't line up perfectly. So I just shaved a hair off of that, and I took a 12 by 12 granite tile so it's perfectly flat. You can use a piece of glass if you want, that's even flatter. Put some sandpaper on it, sand it as flat as possible. That way you get a nice straight edge when you do that, as opposed to getting something that's kind of wavy if you do it by hand. We'll set the neck aside for now, bring the body back over. I put the thread inserts in. You want to use, just start them by hand. Use a mallet, like a plastic or rubber mallet, to get them part way in. You don't ever want to hammer near the face of your guitar, so you want to take a small piece of wood and drive them the rest of the way in. Or if you're really gutsy, you can use drift. If there's too much resistance, you don't want to use anything metal, because it can tend to kind of mushroom the top out, so you don't want to do that. One thing I will mention, put one of the knobs on the pot and it was too tight, and when I went to take it off, it pulled the shaft out of the pot. Now I'm not sure if that's bad quality or if it's just, you know, it was too tight. And I've heard people mention before that you can squeeze these a little bit because there's a gap between there if it's too tight. I didn't feel like it was that tight going on, but obviously it broke the pot. So this was something that, if you watched my unboxing video, I mentioned in the beginning, this was an opportunity for upgrade anyway. So I've ordered some full-size pots. Those will be coming. I'll put a link below in the description of the ones that I ordered, just so that you know what's compatible. I checked all the measurements and made sure that the shaft length and the threaded portion was the same. There is one caveat to that. The ones that I ordered and most of the ones that I found that were full size and better quality actually had a larger hole. So we'll be drilling those holes out, which is part of the reason we do the test fit now, because we can do that now without worrying about messing up the finish. So it won't be any problem at all to do that. And that way we can get that out of the way. I did order some new knobs, ones that had set screws. Again, I mentioned that in the unboxing video. That way you can actually set the depth of the knob. Instead of just pushing it on, you can set the depth so that when you rotate it, it's not scratching your surface finish, which is no fun, especially when you spend all that time working on it. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. And I think what I'm gonna start with is I will actually put the 2 pots in that did not break, just so that you can see that real quick. So you put it in from the back in the electronics compartment. We just push it in, hold it, put the washer on it, make it look difficult. It's really not. Okay, so that's one in, and then you can tighten it down, which I'm not gonna do because we're just doing a test fit, and I'm not even gonna put the other one in. But basically your knob would push down on top of there on the splines, because this is splined and this inside is splined. And I noticed one of the other knobs, the plastic actually pulled out when I went to pull it off. So probably want to upgrade those sooner than later. So I'm just going to take that back out, because those aren't going to stay in there anyway. I'm doing all the wiring and everything right now, so now's the time to upgrade those pots anyway, so it wasn't a great loss. Pots are not expensive. You want to get some good quality like CTS or Alpha. So anyway, that's that. So then your switch, this one actually had 2 nuts on it. It had this one as well as this one, and that's just for setting the depth. So if you had a really thin face guitar, you could use this to set how far it came out so that it's not sticking way out. But in this case, we have a pretty thick face, so we just go straight in with that. You can see there's just enough to put the washer on, and 1 nut. And that's pretty much perfect. This is probably something, again, that I'm gonna end up upgrading. It doesn't feel that bad though. Once you get it into the wood, that kind of dampens the feel a little bit, but it's pretty clicky. So, and the knob is not real great, so that's probably something that eventually I'll upgrade anyway. And I'd like something maybe with like a little bezel around it. So there's that. Now the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna put in the bracket for the Floyd Rose, and that's just gonna take a screw just like that. And we're not gonna put them all the way in. We're just gonna put them part of the way in. Now this is kind of typical. This one is slightly off. So instead of just going in straight and down at an angle, because that's how it's drilled, it's actually wanting to go this way as well. So what I did is I moved the bracket all the way out to where there's no threads so that it has a little bit more room to move around. And I'm just gonna put those in to where they're roughly even. I'm not gonna worry about the tension on that because we're just test fitting. That's all we're doing right now. So I'm gonna flip it back over. We're gonna put these are actually the pivot rods for the Floyd Rose. So I'm gonna thread those all the way in. Put them all the way down just for now. That's how you actually adjust the height later on. And the way we're gonna set this up is make sure that this is flush. So it's gonna have to come up quite a bit from where I have it right now. And then it's gonna have to be flush, and that's how we set the pivot on it. But we can't fully set it up with springs and everything right now because we don't have strings on it. And so with any Floyd Rose, you have to have tension pulling this way and tension pulling that way, otherwise it just falls apart. So the springs would actually just pop out. but I can still show you roughly how that would go together. So we'll just hold it in. Hopefully you can see that on camera. And there's going to be one on the outside, one on the middle, and so there's a loop and a hook. The loop is going to go facing down, one in the middle. Hook goes into the bottom of the Floyd Rose, one on the other side. And then that's going to sit basically like that. You can see our tension there, but we have to have strings on the other side to set that. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect it, otherwise it's going to fall apart. But what we are going to check is we're going to check and see how the Floyd Rose lines up in the hole, because right now we can do some adjustments if we need to. And it looks pretty good. It's a little bit off center. It's a little bit off center this way, so it's a little closer to this side than it is to that side, but it's not bad, and it's straight across the back, which definitely important. So I will probably just leave that as is. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's pretty close to what a production guitar would be. And we're going to leave that bracket in, even though it's going to rattle around. The next thing we're going to do, so the red one is the neck pickup. We're just going to feed the wire through, and we're going to feed it through the channel. The channel was a little bit rough, so I did some cleaning with an X-Acto knife just to make it so that I was able to push it through. And it's easiest if you can get the wire started and then just pull it instead of trying to fish it through. And I'm not going to worry about orientation or anything right now. I'm just trying to make sure the holes line up. That's all I'm worried about. So I'm not going to have it facing the right way or anything like that. The holes are the same no matter which way you have it facing. So that's really my only concern, is to make sure that the holes line up. And you always want to be kind of careful starting it, because with this wood being as soft as it is, being mahogany, you can actually make a new hole pretty easily. So you want to kind of be careful, make sure you're actually in a hole and not threading the body in a different place. So that's what we want to do. Go ahead and put all four in. And those lined up really well. I'm happy with that. So that's good. We got those four in there. And I will mention, I did not put the neck on just so that I can work on it easier on the bench. But normally I would probably start there. But I figured while I'm doing everything else, it's easier to not have the neck on. So get that started, feed it through. Get the wire to cooperate. And just put the screws in quickly. I know this is mind numbing. But this is what you always want to do when you first get a new kit, is you want to make sure everything fits first and foremost. And it kind of takes some time, which is annoying, but it's important, because right now if you needed to move a hole or something, you can put a toothpick in there, glue a toothpick in, cut it off, sand it, and then once you go to finish it, you won't even notice. You can actually re-drill it and nobody will be the wiser. Especially since we're painting this one, I can really get away with murder on this one because it's all going to be covered up anyway. All right, so there's that. Pickups are in, everything seems to fit pretty well. This one's not sitting down all the way. There we go. Yeah, they fit nicely. There's no gaps or anything. All the holes lined up. They went in straight. Happy days. All right, so now we're gonna flip it over and I'll just kind of tuck this in. Now the other thing I'm not overly thrilled about is, I mentioned it in the unboxing video, is this this jack. It is curved, which most of the ones that I looked up online were also curved. I did find a few flat ones, but if you look at this face of this is flat, so it does not sit on there correctly. So I'm going to take the actual jack out of the plate and I'm going to flatten the plate carefully, and then hopefully the holes will still line up, which it looks like they don't even line up right now. So yeah, lines up better one way than the other. I'm not sure how that works, but yeah, maybe when it's flattened out it'll work better. So anyway, let's go ahead and put the neck on. And they do recommend that, actually I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to put this back cover on first, because once we get the neck on, it's going to be more unruly. So this is the way that the back cover goes, with the opening at the bottom. And we're going to grab our screws. And the easiest way to tell which screw goes where sometimes when you got so many screws that are similar is to count how many you have. So there are 6 of these. I know this is the correct screw for this. Now on these, the screw holes were really way off. I am able to get all of them in, but some of them kind of go at this angle, some go at this angle, which I'm not really thrilled about, but they are functional, so I'm not going to worry about trying to relocate a screw over a little bit of an angle. It's not going to look quite as nice because the screws aren't going to be straight in. And again, I'm leaving these a little bit loose so I can move that around and kind of split the difference between the screws that are off. Gives it a little more flexibility. Now that I'm coming down on it, I went ahead and tightened that one down. Yeah, you can see how crooked that one is. That is really crooked. So I'm actually gonna loosen these all up again. So that I was able to get that a little bit more straight because of loosening those up. So that worked out well. All right, back plate is on. Now in the unboxing video, we took a look at this plate and it doesn't quite fit. I'm gonna have to do some shaving on that one. In hindsight, I would probably have done that before we did the assembly, but I forgot. It's very, very close. So I'm just gonna do what I mentioned about the sanding trick. I'm just gonna sand this edge down a little bit. I think the length is just about right. So fortunately, I don't have to try to cut this curve down, but otherwise you'd do basically the same thing. Just kind of slide it along the sandpaper to try to keep that same arch, but reduce the length a little bit. So I'm gonna set that off to the side. And actually, I'm seeing a little bit of issues with the way it was cut. So you always want to start on the side that has, you know, there's a little casting mark here, or cut mark, whatever that is. There's a little mark there. So if we sand this side, the whole thing, it'll look a lot nicer than cutting down one that's already cut nice. All right, so we're gonna move on to the neck. And they do recommend that you use a wood clamp to hold this all together when you're screwing it in. I'm not gonna do that because I'm just test fitting, but I would recommend doing that, partly because if you have a gap between these when you put the screws in, they can pull tight against both things, but not actually pull the neck tight against the body because it is threaded into the body. And so it'll keep that gap even though you're threading it or screwing it together. The other thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to put the strap buttons on right now because we really don't need to. It's just a hole and it's properly located and I know all the parts are there, so I'm not concerned about that whatsoever. I am concerned about things like this neck going on correctly because all 4 holes need to line up properly. That's my main concern. I'm going to try to wrap this up pretty quick. Well, anyway, I'll put the other 2 screws in and make sure they fit, but I'm pretty sure they will. I think it'll be just fine. So there we are. we've got it all together. It looks good. We know everything pretty much fits that we're worried about. I'm going to drill these out when the new pots come, and I will show you that in the wiring video. I'll show you drilling out the holes and wiring the pots up. And we can't go any farther with wiring the pickups and stuff because we have to pull it all back apart. But I will show that in the next video. So like, subscribe, join, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.